Horrors lurk around every corner in the sinister city setting of Little Nightmares 2. This deadly game of hide-and-seek picks up where the original left off, this time with an entirely new set of twisted tormentors hunting you through a variety of dread-inducing locations. It's a formula that works, and Little Nightmares 2 certainly has its fair share of exhilarating moments over the course of its fleeting 4-hour duration. But it also plays things a little safe, utilising many of the original's puzzle-solving and stealth mechanics. Instead of being a shocking new horror, Little Nightmares 2's stalk through the shadows ultimately proves to be somewhat of a retread. New protagonist Mono may look different to the original game's 6, but his skill set is largely the same. The key difference here is Mono's ability to pick up and wield a handful of different weapons to either smash through specific sections of the scenery or defend himself from smaller enemies. Additionally, Mono is equipped with the services of Six herself, since she tags along as an AI-controlled partner through much of the journey. Six's role is that of a more proactive version of Yorda from Eco, but her relationship with Mono doesn't really evolve into the partnership that made that PS2 classic so special. Six becomes a handy guide whenever one of Little Nightmares 2's adult antagonists gives chase, blazing a trail a few yards in front of you to highlight a path that will keep you out of harm's way. This obviously helps to minimise the trial and error in more high-pressure sequences, but her companionship doesn't otherwise introduce much in the way of teamwork as far as puzzles are concerned. There aren't really any complex mechanisms that demand to be operated in tandem. Instead, you mostly perform simple synchronised acts, like using your combined weight to dislodge heavier objects that are blocking the way forward. It is admittedly quite adorable the way Six will occasionally mimic Mono's actions. When he picks up an important puzzle item, she'll often scoop up a wooden building block and amble along behind him like a younger sibling. But much like a little sister, Six also often finds herself getting in the way, stubbornly standing in your path while you're dragging a piece of furniture, for example. At other times, she just got stuck on nothing at all and wouldn't budge no matter how many times I called out to her, which forced me to trigger a checkpoint restart. While Six's inclusion does eventually have a surprising story payoff late in Little Nightmares 2, in a way I won't spoil here, her presence feels largely underutilized for the bulk of the adventure. It also breaks the immersion somewhat that Mono is so easily spotted the moment he edges outside of the shadows, yet Six can seemingly stumble around in the spotlight right under an enemy's nose and attract about as much attention as a broken television set. Speaking of which, busted boob tubes are found littered along your path through Little Nightmares 2's gloomy narrative, which appears to be a sardonic commentary on the screen obsession of modern society. This leads to some hilariously dark moments later on, when Mono is able to toggle these goggle boxes on and off to draw the focus of certain enemy types and lure them to their death like media-loving lemmings. And as was the case with the original, it's the villains that really are the stars of Little Nightmares 2. There are a number of truly terrifying creations hell-bent on sniffing you out. But the one that had me most on edge was the schoolteacher with the serpentine neck. Just hearing the leathery squeak of her stretching spine off camera was enough to make me wince. But the appearance of her dead-eyed grimace wobbling at the end of it was a genuinely chilling sight. How you avoid these hulking towers of terror, however, is by using mostly the same simple stealth techniques established in the original. Crouch walking to quieten your footsteps and scurrying between the shadowy undersides of tables whenever their gaze is averted. One standout section of Little Nightmares 2 satisfyingly strays from the norm by giving Mono a torch that freezes prosthetic-limbed hospital patients in place anytime they're caught in its beam. It's a frantically fun challenge to whip around in order to halt their approach from all angles, and I wish there were a few more interesting departures like this along the way. Even so, Little Nightmares 2 is still much better at flight than it is at fight, and the small amount of combat on offer failed to engage me to the same degree as the consistently hair-raising stealth. While I certainly savoured the visceral thrill of pulverising the porcelain skulls of the school section's bullies, I found judging the arc of my swing frustratingly imprecise anytime an enemy was above or below mono in relation to the 2.5D camera viewpoint. These spatial awareness issues also meant I frequently failed to grab ropes like this, or got snatched seemingly out of nowhere by enemies like this. Thankfully, regular checkpoints mean that clumsy moments like these aren't as annoying as perhaps they could have been. Little Nightmares 2 is every bit as black, bleak, and eerily beautiful as the original. It's also just as brief, and although the introduction of the sixth character as an AI-controlled co-op partner ultimately serves the story well, she's not really used to take the game's puzzle-solving and stealth to interesting new places, which seems like a real missed opportunity. While I still very much enjoyed each thrilling encounter with its menacing mob of monstrosities, the overall sense of familiarity this time around meant that Little Nightmares 2 left less of a lasting impact. There's no doubting developer Tarsier Studios' artistry and ability, but I hope for its next project it leaves these little nightmares behind and dares to dream bigger. For more on Little Nightmares 2, check out the first 15 minutes of gameplay, and for everything else, stick with IGN.